This is a public service announcement for everyone in the UK right now. In the media, all you'll be hearing about is Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng crushed the pound, right? It's bullshit. The whole thing is bullshit, right? All you have to look at the Federal Reserve raised interest rates a few days before, right? So interest rate rises were baked in. The whole thing was baked in. Now, have a look at what's going on, this whole Russia versus fucking America thing, because Ukraine is just a proxy for America and NATO, right? Yeah, the whole thing's ridiculous. So, who's actually gaining out of this, right? Russia and the US are both gaining out of this. All major currencies have tumbled against the dollar, and the ruble rose against the dollar, right? So every major currency is getting weaker against the dollar and even more weaker against the ruble, right? But the media is trying to tell you that Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng crashed the pound and it's some kind of isolated incident in the UK, right? If you go and look at every major currency pair across the world against the dollar or the ruble, yeah, they're all down, all of them, every single one of them, yeah, an equal amount roughly or more to the pound, yeah. You look at the performance of the euro over the last 2 years, fucking ridiculous. So, and I'm not a fan of the Conservatives, by the way, so don't try and get this twisted into making me out to be some kind of like Tory bootlicker or whatever. That's not the case here. But the fact of the matter is, the mini budget statement had nothing to do with the pound crashing, right? Interest rates were baked in to rise. That was just the moment that confirmed that it was going to happen, right? Traders sell off gilts, right? And if you don't understand the mechanic of this, then you don't understand money, right? Everyone knew this was going to happen, right? We've been cutting interest rates for decades, right? And now we get to the bottom of the cycle. They pump more money into the system at the bottom of the cycle because of an induced fucking recession because of the pandemic, an induced lockdown. You create a coiled spring of pent-up demand, basically creating all this extra printed money, suddenly gets released into the system again. The whole thing is a mess, right? But this is how the system works, right? So they've got to step in now, even though they're raising interest rates, to calm inflation, which they can't do because the inflation is caused by a supply crisis. So actually the only way to reduce the inflation is for them to induce a recession, because the only real way to calm inflation in the things that we're seeing is to invest more money in food and energy production domestically, and that's in every country in the world. But that's a long-term plan. They can't do that overnight, and the only thing that they have to make it look like they're doing something in the short term is to move interest rates around. The whole thing's a fugazi, it's fake, smoke and mirrors, none of it's real. Money is fake. The whole thing's created on a computer screen, it is not real. Except it's real to the poor people who are going to suffer because of them messing around, trying to make it look like they're doing something. I'm going to cause more inflation. So what are they actually doing? Right, traders selling off gilts because they realise the central bank is no longer going to be propping up the price of gilts by printing money and buying bonds up to keep interest rates low. And if you don't understand that mechanic, then you need to go and understand how interest rates actually work. Google open market mechanics, open market operations, whatever, quantitative easing. Print money out of nowhere, buy bonds. Bonds have a fixed function. It's a fixed income asset. Right, which means there's two functions of it: a principal amount of money that is paid in the beginning, lent, right? There's a coupon, which is an interest rate, right? And then there's a maturity, which is a date, an amount of time that it's over, right? The price of a bond will always represent the sum of the principal and the coupon payment, right? Now the coupon payment is the interest rate, so if you want to change the interest rate, you have to buy or sell bonds to move the price of the bond in order to change the interest rate. That's basically a simple version of it. I'm not going to go too into detail on that. If you want to learn more, you can go and Google that. But that's what they're doing. They're stopping buying short-term dated bonds, gilts, treasuries, whatever. The market goes down because they're not printing money to buy them and prop the price up. If you look at the price of bonds over the last however many years, the last 2 decades, as interest rates have been going down, they've been buying a record number of them. So the price has been going up and up and up and up and up to push the coupon rate to 0. So that the price represents basically the sum of what would have been the coupon payment and the principal in one go. But then when interest rates start going up, they stop buying them, and eventually the central bank that holds all the bonds, they start selling them. When you have a large interest rate rise, that's what's got to happen. So that's why the traders sold off the bonds. There's a rout in the pound because everything's going down against the dollar, because the pound interest rate, the Bank of England base rate, is not going up as fast as the Fed interest rate, right? It's quite obvious if you look at it. Yeah, the interest rate in the US is going up quicker than it is going up here. Therefore, the pound is going down against the dollar. Yeah, interest rates in the the Eurozone, the European central banks basically had rates at actual 0 for 10 years, or since like 2016, right? At actual 0. Make like a small move, but it ain't gonna make no difference, right? So yeah, that's what's actually happening. And then they're just going to try and blame it on politicians for stuff that they knew was going to happen anyway, right? And then what are they also doing? They're then printing more money to buy long-dated bonds, right? To stop the whole thing collapsing all in one go. Make it look like they're tapering, right? But in the end, they're going to taper to a point, and then they're going to have to cut on short-dated bonds again because everything's going to go into a recession. And the inflationist system can't be allowed to collapse. So yeah, I'm calling it all ahead of time. You've seen this shit. I'm telling you exactly how it's happening, why it's happening, and what's happening. Yeah. Don't love politicians, but hey man, you can't let them blame people for nothing. Like, what the fuck is this shit? The whole thing's a lie. Look at what the media's doing, bro. Like, the switch is apparent at this point, right? Media allegiance has shifted. Keir Starmer's an establishment plant, isn't he? Clearly. The whole thing's a ruse. Wouldn't be surprised if what's going on, Boris, some bullshit, some whole controlled opposition shit, just like the Jeremy Corbyn experiment. So yeah, let's see how this plays out, but documenting it here now, share it, show your friends, whatever. Peace and love.